All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest news and rumors all off season long in Mets land. Before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to hit the subscribe button to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel if you have not already for weekly episodes of our show that are now recorded every Monday night over the off season, typically at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which is right now. For those of you watching or listening on playback and you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to not miss when we go live, as well as multiple videos that are put out throughout the week, all off season long. For those of you in the live chat right now, we're just letting you know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, and any thought that you have about this team. You feel like you're being ignored. You're not being ignored. Just being starred throughout the video, out the stream. And we will try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. We might save a few of them for viewer questions at the end of the show as well. Follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for future content over there. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 105 of the Mets Weekly Podcast. And I say this after 105 episodes and tons of other content before that. I want to thank everybody that is in here watching on YouTube or on X for getting us to 2,000 subscribers on the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Quite a fun milestone. We were at 1,000, I would say, I don't know, like a year and a half ago, maybe. I'm not sure when we hit that, but definitely thank you guys so much for all the endless support, especially recently on our videos, streams, extra streams, whatever it is. And we will continue to give you that content, that very brutally honest opinion about everything going on regarding the Mets. No matter how great or how bad it may be, we are here for all of it. So thank you guys so much for that. Now, we've had a few transactions made by the Mets this week, and I think that there are a few questions that have been answered. And then there's also a few moves that kind of make the roster kind of shape up to what it is, and then also not. And then also, of course, waiting for that big domino to fall. Frank, what are you seeing? Of course, we'll get into a few of those moves, of course. But again, it's another week that has passed by, getting closer to the winter meetings. What are your current thoughts at this moment?
I feel like based off what we saw with the Mets, how they treated their 40-man roster with Rule 5 and just kind of the way they handled arbitration, they're not really kind of banking on too many of the guys that they've had. I mean, you see just the long list of free agents that they have from the guys that were there this past season. I mean, I think they are kind of totally okay with just kind of adding in a bunch of new players and seeing how that goes. I feel like seeing what Yusei Kikuchi got at his age, also, like we've talked about with the pitching market, it's much more realistic where you see the Mets try to find next year's version of Manaya and Severino and company instead of maintaining the guys they already had in their rotation.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what they do because there is a lot of work to do, like you said, with the amount of free agents that we have going on this market. They're going to make a lot of outgoing and ingoing decisions of what those transactions will be. We don't know. We know what they're looking at as of right now. But the pivot from that will be very, very interesting. And even though those rumors have started to heat up, Andrew, you weren't here for our last stream that we did regarding the latest trade that the Mets did. But I think that, this becomes a very exciting point right now as to where the GM meetings are already done. You're close to the winter meetings now, which I think is, I don't know, almost 2 weeks away, a little bit less than 2 weeks away. So what is your current stance? I know I've been working you like a dog with your solo videos, but what do you got for this live show right now?
Yeah, no, we've hit all the adding of extra free agents with the non-tender deadline, qualifying offer stuff's all done. So now it's just all signings, and now obviously they've made trades, but now we know who's got the qualifying offer, who's giving up draft picks, what draft picks we're getting. We'll probably get either 2 or 3 draft picks if, certain White Bear is gone and the 2 pitchers are gone. And I've seen a lot of people, again, especially when it comes to, like what Frank was saying, well, wanting to run it back. You could do that, but again, Stearns is giving you every indication to say, hey, if and this is kind of what I hope doesn't become a yearly thing where, like, oh, every year we're like, well, let him make sure Stearns finds the next Manaea. I'm not, again, I've made it very clear I don't want to bring back Severino, especially. Manaea, I'm okay with. It just depends on the term. But, like, again, every year it's this thing. And, again, you're starting to see that, we'll see how the pitching prospects develop and maybe not have to have this conversation. But, again, this every yearly thing of, well, let's not spend the top of the market. Let's go, let's find those reclamation projects. I mean, yeah, and if he keeps doing it and he has the track record, sure. But, again, we saw some guys get non-tendered that, like, everyone's like, ooh, there would be some relievers. We didn't really see much starting pitching. And of those guys who got non-tendered, I mean, I made a video, which is probably not this week. But, again, there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't no former MVP. There wasn't, a World Series MVP in Schwarber. It was a lot of relievers. And then just, the bats were, Dylan Carlson. It was nothing. Brendan Rodgers, you could say, was the best bat non-tendered. And even he's flawed because he's a Colorado Rocky. But, again, with all those hurdles done and enough of the, we saw some 40-man roster movement. Again, we're down to 31 active current guys on the 40-man. I think I saw that tweet. I think it's 31, so 9 spots you got to fill. Obviously we expect them to be active. We see, again, we got, a couple other relievers. We're seeing them do minor league deals, so again, it's going to be a chaotic. I mean, we have to catch up to the Angels. The Angels have already spent about, $200 million. So, we're already frauds. The fact that the Angels are just spending money and signing all these, all-stars, Steve, Dave, why are we sleeping?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I've never seen the Angels spend ridiculous money. But when it comes to this offseason right now, and I really do have a confidence boost in the way that the Mets are seeing this as they aren't satisfied with what just happened last year as, a NLCS loss. Even though it was a successful season and you could put it in the books as a successful stepping stone, they still are looking at this as can we get better? Because we talked about this all the time in the not the old regime, but the past regime of a certain guy who was suspended for a year for not being able to use the injured list properly. We've seen this before where they have brought guys back after a successful season, and then it goes awry. 2022 to 2023 is that example. The Mets are not satisfied. They're looking at what did not work, and they're going to try and build it to 2025, where they continue to be that sustainable winner. We know that one big free agent out there that the Mets are currently eyeing, and it looks like some of the news that we have gotten and some of the reports that we've gotten recently are looking to go in our favor, this week. That you can lock down some sustainable winning with a nucleus such as Lindor and Soto. Hopefully that could possibly happen, again, when there's no guarantees. But right now it is looking fairly good, and we will get into that. I do want to hop into the chat for a second. Darren Rivera saying, what's up? How you doing? One of our loyal viewers. Brad coming in, talking about Bob Nightingale dropping all these dimes of information would scare us. Yes, we will get into that eventually. And then Daniel coming in here talking about Pete Alonso, if you were David Stearns. I think we'll actually star that for later. But we'll definitely talk about some other things regarding moving on from this offseason. But I do want to start off with the moves that have been already made this past week, because we did have a decent amount of movement that happened on the Mets roster. And I do want to start off with something that we already kind of discussed in our last stream. Andrew was not here for it, but there is definitely some touches I do want to do on it regarding a lot of different things of what the Mets are kind of setting them up for right now. So the Mets, in case you guys missed it, they did make their first major league-ish move so far this offseason, acquiring Jose Siri in exchange for right-handed pitcher Eric Orsi. Now, for those of you who don't know about Jose Siri, because he has definitely been in some small markets, he hasn't been on he hasn't really been the big stage, but let's just say he is quite the big stage personality, and we'll get into that in a second. But a full rundown of somebody like Jose Siri. Not a great offensive year from last year, but the main thing that we are looking at is the overall defense and tools that he can supply. 99 percentile in OAA, which is an overall range metric, which we definitely like to see from the center field position. Very strong arm, 97th percentile in overall arm strength. 97th percentile in sprint speed, very fast, can still use some bases, stole 14 bases last year, can get a decent amount of extra base hits, can hit for some power. The problem here with him overall offensively is, yes, he has registered that 446 expected weighted on base average on contact when he puts the ball in play, which is a 91st percentile. But the problem is he doesn't make that much contact, and he's in the bottom 10% league chase rate and whiff rate, strikes out a lot, lots of chasing, not great discipline, but when he does make contact and does put the ball in play, he definitely can do damage. But we know that we're looking at this from a run prevention standpoint, and that was definitely the main emphasis of a move like this. Now, Frank and I definitely broke down of what this could possibly mean, especially with the next thing going on, with the outfield of a certain outfielder that they are chasing, and we'll get into. But I do want to talk about this, to a possibility with Andrew, because Andrew was not here for this stream. And I did mention this in this last stream, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this. When I think about this Jose Siri thing and how he's kind of how he is, comes off as a player, the skill set that he has. Definitely power hungry, very swing and miss, but overall great defender. Here's my initial thought from this that I got the moment that they traded for him. I feel like the Mets wanted to trade for Dalton Varsho, and the Blue Jays asked for too much. The Mets said no, and they pivoted to Jose Siri. Now, what is your thought on possibly that? Your thoughts on this trade, because you didn't get to give much of your thoughts on it. But that's kind of like the main feel that I kind of got off of this, where they were eyeing somebody like Dalton Varsho from the left-handed side, and it just did not seem to work out. And they went to Jose Siri, who has a similar skill set, but just not as premium as somebody like Dalton Varsho, who can give you a lot of versatility. What do you think about that possibility?
I mean, it's a thought. I mean, especially, in Toronto, which, again, Toronto's probably going to spoil a lot of videos because we've seen how the reports and the desperation from them, we would expect a team in that situation would probably blow it up, but again, their GM and president of baseball ops is, fighting for their job, so they're going to do something very stupid this year, and multiple things knowing their luck. So I think it makes sense, but also if you compare Siri to Varsho, cost-effective wise, Varsho's going to make about $8 million, Siri's making $2.5 million, plus Varsho's a pending UFA. Siri, you have 2 years of control. So you have the extra year, same age. I mean, it's definitely the model type is probably similar. I mean, it's the same. Like you said, it's probably they would have preferred the left-handed version. The fact that when we're gonna look back at Eric Orsi in 6 months and he's gonna have a sub 2.3 ERA because the Rays are gonna work their devil magic and he's gonna have a sweeper with his changeup and he's gonna throw 107. We're gonna be like, where the hell did this come from? But that's what the Rays do. But again, it's a power bat when he makes contact, which is fine. I mean, I love that Frank was hating Harrison Bader, and he's going to be he'll bat ninth, which is fine, but then I'm going to laugh when he goes 0 for 29, but Frank's going to be well, the defense, he did make a diving play, but if Harrison Bader does that, Frank's going to kill him. But besides the point, again, it's a fine move, and we paid $10 million for this last year. Stearns is already shaving $8.5 million or $8 million just for that. So again, cost effective. You're giving up a reliever that we saw, again, we only got a cup of coffee with, and again, he's going to Tampa Bay. That always scares everybody. But again, that's the risk you run when you make a trade with the Rays. Or he at least it's a changeup primary, which is not a great pitch, but the Rays will figure it out. But Siri's fine. I mean, again, it's $2.5 million. I mean, it could just be another Keon Broxton where you're like, oh, he's a good defender, doesn't hit for shit. I mean, that's what he is. I mean, at least when he makes contact, the ball go boom, which is always my kind of hitter. But it's just, can he make enough contact to do it? But again, if you're telling me my non-hole hitter is going to hit 20 homers and play elite defense, sure. I mean, again, you're going to see him split some time. You would have preferred, obviously, the left-handed bat platoon with Tyrone Taylor. But again, if there wasn't that option and if they weren't going to spend money, which, again, a whole video was made right as the damn thing dropped, which, of course, that I always got to... Maybe we need to make a Soto to the Yankees video, and then the news is going to drop as soon as we post that. Maybe I'll record that after the video, after the stream. But, again, it's fine. Again, I would have preferred... Again, this is just me, but we got to do the run prevention. I'd rather go with the offensive first player, with the average defense, but Stern just obviously prioritizing the defense. Whoop-de-doo, we want to be the Brewers. Yeah, we get to play good defense. But again, he's fine. He's got aura. He hits 20. If he hits 20, hit ninth, I'm fine. He didn't give up much, but again, and you're saving money, and if you're taking that $8 extra million and either signing another reliever, a well-known reliever, or giving it to Soto, or going into the pitching market, again, it's a savvy move. It's just not a sexy move, and it's nothing to lose your pants about, or go nuts about, go happy and pop a bottle, or just he's gonna make plays defensively, and if he gives you even a glimpse of that 2022 form or 2023, you'll take it as your 9-hole hitter. So again, you really can't yell at the world that this is a bad thing, but it's fine.
Yeah, guys, I think we're having some kind of an issue with the stream, or we were at a second. It didn't seem like it was coming over to the Mets Weekly channel. It looks like it's working now. So if you guys see us on the Mets Weekly channel right now, let us know if you're watching there. I'm not sure what happened in that regard, but we're just going to roll with it, and then we'll figure it out, of course. But
yeah, because I didn't get the notification
until
6:18.
Yeah,
for the Mets
it just popped up, so I'm not
Frank's
sure
was
what
at
happened
6.
there.
Yeah, Frank's was live
but
at 6.
we are just Frank's is fine. Yeah, it seems like it's coming through now. I don't know what happened there, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, back to Jose Siri in this. Frank, if there's anything else that you would like to add, of course, we know that this does have something to do relatively with the guy that they're pursuing right now, who is not really the greatest defensively. Even though he has this Gold Glove candidacy, he's not great in right field, has a great arm, but not great overall in his range, never was a great defender. Do you think that this shapes up fairly well to cover this thing up? I mean, I think that the way that we kind of look at this outfield, there are some question marks, but I think that we have a sure-handed defender now in Jose Siri.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go along with Andrew's point about making it more of a platoon, maybe with Tyrone Taylor, with somebody from the left side. I mean, the issue is that when you look at the market itself, all of those pending free agents from center field, they're all right-handed. I mean, unless you want to count Aaron Hicks, but at 35, he should not be your defensive center fielder. He's just not that player anymore. So ideally, you'd like that left-handed bat, but I just feel like since that option was available, you just say, okay, well, let me just get the best guy. I mean, because like we talked about on the stream, but we're talking about 99th percentile in OAA. We're talking about 99th percentile in sprint speed. So as good as Bader was or is defensively, this guy's even better. He does not have the injury track record that Bader has. He has more power than Bader has and much cheaper. And kind of like I said, like whether the Mets get Soto or if they don't get Soto and they end up with Santander or Teoscar Hernandez, or don't get any of them and have to stick with Marte, no matter what, the Mets are going to have a very bad defensive right fielder. And with Brendan Nimmo not entering age 30, coming off some injuries, he's average at best with his range. So no matter what combination the Mets are going to go with next year, you are going to need a really good defensive center fielder with this team. Now, if they don't upgrade the offense in the corners, I will be frustrated because I want to see some kind of offensive upgrade in the outfield. So again, I hope that this is just like a foreshadowing of like a big move offensively in the corners to come. But I think for right now, I'm willing to let it play out because, like I said, no matter what, the Mets are going to need help defensively because no matter who they put in the corners, even if you bring back Winker or talk about some of these other guys that are out there, none of them are good defensive outfielders. So they were going to need someone really strong in center.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we will see what happens of how they kind of form this thing over. And I know that there are a lot of Mets fans who looked at this dude's batting average and said, okay, well, another guy that can hit. Fine, whatever. I think I kind of look at this as just, the marginal move that it is. And you know what? I think that it's good for both sides because this is basically what the Mets needed. And we knew that center field was going to be something that they needed to address in this offseason. We know that Brandon Nimmo is coming off of that foot injury, and he's definitely going to be slowing down, and I don't see him playing center field. We saw David Stern say that he's most likely going to be the left fielder no matter what, and they were going to address center field in that way. You look at all of these other options, like I said, regarding somebody like Dalton Varsho. I feel like they probably asked for too much. Maybe they didn't even look at Varsho at all. We had other guys that were out there. Luis Robert, we know, was out there as well. We know that Cody Bellinger has been on the trade market recently these last few years. But when it comes to a piece such as Jose Siri, he's young enough. He's 29 years old. He's got definitely some game in him. He's got a lot left to go. And listen, I think that when it comes to, forming up this team, they do need these marginal pieces. And it really did show, how they were able to win games in different spots with guys like Tyrone Taylor and guys like Harrison Bader, which kind of like flipped their roles in the first half and the second half, where Bader was good in the first half, wasn't great in the second half. Tyrone Taylor was subpar in the first half, and then the second half, he really definitely got going and was productive. So I think that the way that they look at it regarding pieces in this outfield, and I think I already said this, I think that right now the Mets don't trust Starling Marte to play right field anymore, and I think that that's really the feel right now. Yes, he is still here. Most likely, he is still our right fielder on the depth chart at this current moment. But I feel like the only way that Starling Marte is an everyday player is if he's, having part-time in left field and DH. And then maybe you have an occasional center field piece for Brandon Nimmo or something like that. That's kind of how I kind of see it. I feel like they just don't trust Starling Marte to play right field anymore. And he's not going to play right field if we get a certain player in here, which we'll get into. Like you said, everyone's chomping at the bit to talk about it. But we just got to get the essentials out of the way first. But when we look at a lot of ways that they are kind of forming this roster, I do want to kind of get into the other moves that they did also make. We have seen them sign a lot of minor league signings as well. We have seen Joey Meneses, former National, Jackson Reitz get signed. We also had Alex Carrillo, who's a fireballer, by the way, but he's a minor leaguer, won't be for a while. Hobie Harris, Donovan Walton as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys get signed on minor league deals. We'll see what they give us in spring training. You never know. But when it comes to, when it comes to the guys who were non-tendered with the non-tendered deadline, and we will have a video coming out regarding of that non-tendered deadline of pieces that the Mets can add to their bullpen that will be coming out. Andrew, this is his, it's a solo video for him. And it will be coming out at like 5 o'clock tomorrow. And hopefully the Mets don't sign a reliever like they did last week, where they brought in Jose Siri an hour before that video was supposed to drop regarding center field options. But when it comes to actual non-tenders, as for what you look at the non-tender deadline, this is what the Mets ended up deciding. And for some of these players, it is the end of the road. And specifically for that guy on the right, which I'll get into in a second, the Mets did non-tender 3 specific players and will not tender a contract to them for 2025, making them free agents and available to sign with any team. They also avoided arbitration with Sean Reed-Foley. He will be back. Let's hope that his health does not get compromised in that possibility. We have seen a lot of health issues from him, but definitely from Sean Reed-Foley, we have seen a solid Mets career, and he has given us somewhat of quality. He just has not been healthy enough to establish it. Now, as for the players that were non-tendered, you have left-handed pitcher Alex Young, 31 years old. He's an ARB2. He was claimed on waivers by the Mets from Cincinnati in the middle of July. Posted a 3.29 earned run average across 13.2 innings pitched with the Mets. Was not on there. It did not pitch a single inning in the postseason for them, so it made sense as to why he would have been dropped. Grant Hartwig is another one. A undrafted free agent in 2021, signed with the Mets. Stormed through the minor league system that year, 27 years old. He's still in pre-arb. He did undergo surgery to prepare a meniscus tear in his left knee while he was in AAA Syracuse this year. Pitched a little bit this year. Pitched 42 career innings with the Mets. Earned run average over 5. Was not great in the major leagues, so he has been let go as well. Now, the most headlined one of all the non-tenders has been outfielder Alex Ramirez, who was added to the Mets 40-man roster to avoid the Rule 5 draft last year, and he had yet another rough season. A 590 OPS across 542 plate appearances in Double-A Binghamton. He was a former international signing by the Mets in 2019. The Mets had some of the high hopes for him that maybe he can put it together, but it just doesn't seem like it was meant to be, as the Mets let go of him and move on from him after over 5 years in the Mets organization. As for the pieces that are expected to be tendered a contract, there are some others that are on this roster, seeming to be roster filler at this current moment, but other pieces that we do expect to be tendered a contract, or maybe they do get DFA'd later. But right now, the expectation, Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio, Alvarez, Acuna, Beatty, Nunez, Budo, Christian Scott, who will be out for 2025, Oscar Brazaban, Reed Garrett, Jose Siri, who they just acquired, Tyler McGill, Tyrone Taylor, Luis Torrens, David Peterson, and Paul Blackburn, who was expected to be a 50-50 on who gets non-tendered. Now, when it comes to a piece like Alex Ramirez, I think that, when it comes to a piece like that, he was viewed very highly towards the beginning there. And ever since then, he just really has not grabbed his footing whatsoever. And I think that we all knew that it was pretty much the end of the road for him. He had a lot of upside. I was definitely a fan of the kid, and I was excited to see what he was able to do, but he just was not able to put it together, and he struggled mightily. Made it up to Double-A. Maybe there's a team that picks him up and, he can have success somewhere else. But Andrew, as somebody who is a big minor league guy, Alex Ramirez, were you shocked? Were you, I don't think anybody really was shocked, but 22 years old. I can tell you one thing right now. I've never seen a guy never play in the major leagues, be on the 40-man roster, and then get non-tendered like that. Like I don't think I've ever seen something like that happen, but it did happen for the Mets this week, getting rid of Alex Ramirez.
Yeah, and again, when he originally was put on the 40-man, I was saying on this show, why? He was 21. It was last year or 2 years ago when they put him on the 40. It was last year, right?
Last year. David Stearns put him on the 40. So
he's 20. Yeah, good job, David. He's 21 who didn't reach Double-A, and you're putting and you were being like, well, you the talent. That was kind of, for me, a death kiss, because if he didn't progress fast, because he was on the 40-man, especially how valuable a 40-man roster spot is. If he wasn't progressing, he was going to be cut, and that's why I've said in all the videos we did so far since the offseason and all the streams, why I've been so. He's going to be a trade, I would have thought, just at least a throw-in, just to open up the 40-man roster spot and end up, again, you just DFA him. But again, he didn't play, so it's not even like, well, like, he has all the raw tools, but again, he didn't produce. And once he was that 40-man, especially, and like I said, how valuable those spots are, it was kind of just a ticking time bomb. Okay, say, if he keeps going, okay, he was going to get DFA'd, and, it sucks because, again, it's a 22-year-old kid. I mean, he has he's got talent. we saw it in 2021 in A-ball, and when he got up to Brooklyn, you're like, okay, there's something there. And then just ever since 2021, he has just regressed, and you're just like, okay, whatever. And again, it's a prospect. It's a guy who barely got to Double A. I mean, he played in Double A. So is somebody going to take a flyer on him? Probably. Watch him go to like San Diego or Tampa or Milwaukee, and then they'll find tools and make him at least a quality major leaguer. I just think, again, ever since he was put on that 40-man roster, it was like, okay, Stearns, I guess, had faith in him because, again, he added him because when he really didn't need to, because no one would have took a 21-year-old who barely played in Double A at the time when he was added to the 40-man. Nobody was taking him in the Rule 5 draft because, again, he would have just given him back to the Mets anyway because of it. He wouldn't have been on the roster the whole year. So, again, maybe it was a miscalculation from Stearns because, again, we've seen Stearns is very toolsy, and it just didn't work out. And he's done his whole tenure. He made the mistake. He said, all right, I made a mistake. All right, let's move on. And it sucks, but again, that's why with prospects, they're suspects until they're proven otherwise. And you can have all the raw ability and all the raw power grades and all that. If you can't do it on the field and can't produce, it's all just stuff. There's no substance. And this is just another one of the, 5-tool guys who just flames out, and hopefully he gets another chance. Another former prospect, the Mets, was signed by Baltimore a couple minutes ago, and Jeremiah Jackson is now a Baltimore Oriole. That doesn't fit their role, besides the point. Again, hopefully he gets in. He's definitely going to, somebody will grab him and being able to put him in Double A, and maybe in a couple of years we look at a 25-year-old Alex Ramirez in the big leagues. Who knows? But again, it's just open the spot up, and it's just an experiment that didn't go well.
Yeah, Frank, I mean, we also have some other guys that were Alex Young, Grant Hartwig, one that was brought in by David Stearns through waivers. Grant Hartwig was before Stearns was here. Is there any thought of any second thought that you have around Alex Ramirez? I mean, I think that the book has pretty much been closed. And before I get to you and move this one over to you, I do want to address the poll in the chat, which kind of got a little bit misshifted with our stream kind of lagging out on the Mets Weekly channel, which we apologize about that. But asking everybody what their most surprising non-tender was this week, 10% of you are saying Alex Young, 5% of you are saying Grant Hartwig, 41% of you, 43%, it just jumped. I don't know what just happened. 41% of you guys are saying Alex Ramirez, and then 45% of you are saying that none are surprising. And Frank, I mean, I'll go to you in regards to this one because, we did have some eyes on Alex Ramirez and maybe, what he does in the higher levels. We definitely saw some confidence from Stearns. But, we'll see what happens in regards to some of these other prospects. I know that somebody in the chat mentioned Kevin Parada. I don't see Kevin Parada being added to the 40-man roster at any point. But when it comes to Alex Ramirez, I mean, is the heart pretty much set on this one? I think that it's been established that he's struggled for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a shame when you think about it, especially the position that he plays. I mean, what are we talking about just a little while ago at Jose Siri? Like, oh, imagine some offense from center field. And that's what we were hoping Alex Ramirez could provide to some extent based off of the nice start he got off to. But like we said, once he got that promotion, he just never was able to improve. If anything, got worse. So, we've been waiting a few years now and still have not seen any really positive signs. And I think one thing to consider is that it's not even so much that he's not a Stearns guy, but the Mets have had so many different GMs that he's like multiple, like just guys beforehand. You know what I mean? Like he's just a regime way before time. So, Stearns gave him a shot by putting him onto the 40-man roster, saying, okay, we'll give him one more year to see if he could provide anything of value to show us improvement, then maybe get to AAA or just see improvement in general. And they didn't see it. So there's just no point anymore. Hopefully they do find someone that is much better of a fit to take up that 40-man roster spot. Like they didn't just get rid of him and just bring in someone who's worse to fill the 40-man spot. I do feel like we've talked about, since you don't have a rotation, you have just a couple guys, you basically need a bullpen, you need a first base. Like we talked about, you need like we've talked about, so many guys are gone that you need to add so many more players to your 40-man roster. So it's like, are you going to keep Alex Ramirez, over a lot of other guys are actually going to be pieces for you this season. I feel like even if the Mets kept Ramirez on from my roster because he was in Double-A struggling, you still weren't going to see him this season. So it's just a matter of you really got to think about like, okay, well, who are we actually going to be using this season on our 40 man? So I definitely understand it. As far as Hartwig, another guy who was before Stearns' time, we saw mixed results. Yeah, I mean, some stuff we like, some things we didn't like. And when you're coming off of an injury with the knee, you just never know how that's going to go either. So I'm totally fine with him just saying, you know what, we'll see if we can find someone who's more healthy and see if they can provide something, a new set of eyes, an actual Stearns targeted pitcher. And then I feel for Alex Young, with this Mets bullpen last year, we talked about it, but the opening day roster was very different from the roster that they had at the end of the season when it came particularly to the bullpen, especially with the whole Jake Diekman scenario where he was gone and you just had Danny Young and you're like, okay, we'll try to get another lefty, Alex Young. And for the most part, Alex Young is a guy who was used as that extra roster spot for the September call-ups. So I feel like they just wanted another lefty arm. I mean, like you mentioned, they got him off of waivers pretty late in the season. So he was just there to eat a few innings. They weren't putting him to any like super high leverage roles or any big spots because he didn't blow anyone away. Like even though his ERA was all right, you just feel like the overall looking further into the numbers, he just didn't have anything that just kind of popped off the charts. So I feel like, when it comes to him, you just feel like you could find something better to put on your 40-man roster and just have something that's more of value that you feel you could use much more.
I mean, when it comes to a piece like Alex Young, it seemed like he was always the victim of the inherited runners as to where he just was not getting the job done from the stretch. And that's why we had such a fluctuation in earned run average. Obviously, those are base runners that are issued by the previous pitcher, but kind of getting out of those situations. Hartwig, another one, somebody, Truro, I don't know if I'm saying that right, saying that Hartwig could have been good if he didn't hit so many batters. I absolutely agree with that, and that's definitely something you don't want to run into, of course, when you are a reliever. Also saying Alex Ramirez walks so Simon Juan can run. Another a prospect that has definitely struggled recently. But we'll see what happens in regards to other roster moves that they do make, filling in these roster moves, because I do think there's also some other placeholders that they have on the 40-man roster. There's like that Kevin Herget guy who's there. There's like that De Los Santos guy they got from Toronto. Like there's some pieces that I think get moved if they make any later additions as an addition to the 9 empty spots, the 6 extra empty spots they have right now. So we'll see what happens with that. As for Alex Ramirez, I think that there was always some hope that he could possibly put it together, but there just really was no substance of it. We just did not see any consistency in that way. We saw him definitely dominate low ball hitting. In Brooklyn, he was not great. And then in Binghamton, he was just as bad. And he just seemed to show the exact same issues that we've continued to see throughout his entire minor league career. And there was not great swing decisions. I think that, we did not see the power. We did not see the power progress at all in a 6'3" frame. It didn't seem like he grew into his body the way that he was supposed to when it came to a piece like Ronnie Mauricio growing into his body like he did. Alex Ramirez did not. There also were some things from scouts talking about the lazy work ethic and, unmotivated stuff. So it was surprising to see kind of Stearns put, some chips on him and say, you know what, I'm going to add him to the 40-man roster to give him a chance. Knowing the upside that he did have, it didn't end up working out. They made the decision to move him off of it and non-tender him and move on. So, I mean, he gave him a chance, and we'll see what happens. I think that when it looks at for some of these prospects, there are a lot of pieces that they're going to bring in through the draft, of course, with Ben Gross coming in here, pairing up with David Stearns of what they did in Houston. They did a really good job in regarding to player development over there. But when it comes to the farm system now, there are some other pieces from other regimes that could be not just on the move, but could be just outright cut. I was a little surprised that nobody really put their hat in for Alex Ramirez. I'm not saying trading an actual body for him, but like, $50,000 cash. There you go. There's Alex Ramirez. That's it. Send him to some team. But it seemed like nobody wanted him. And they ended up non-tendering him. I definitely think that they shopped him, but it didn't seem like they got any bites. And for good reason, to be honest, after 2 subpar years. One this year that was probably worse than last year, to be honest, of overall results that you got from him. He just did not pan out. And it sucks because I feel like he would have been a great player if he did pan out, because I think that there is some talent there, but we just did not see it. And that's that. I think that's pretty much it. I think there are some people new in the chat that I have not seen in the Mets Weekly chat. I think they might be in Frank's chat right now. For those of you wondering where we're getting some of these comments from, because I think somebody asked about the poll and didn't get to vote on a poll. That is on the Mets Weekly channel as of right now. I'm sure it's in Frank's description as well. You can go join us over there, or you can stay put at Frank. And for those of you on Twitter, the conversation is a little bit more fluent over here. Make sure to hop over here in regards to that. I don't think that there's really anything else to go with in regards to anything that has been going on. With any of these other internal pieces. We talked about Jose Siri, of course, in that stream that we did, me and Frank a few days ago. And then as for the non-tenders, I was not really shocked that Alex Ramirez was let go. I was just kind of shocked to see, him just not really get any bites on the trade market. I've never seen a minor leaguer who has never played a major league game get non-tendered. I've never seen that happen before. I think that, it's a first for everything. So, we'll see what happens. But when it comes to the overall story that everybody wants to talk about, let's get into the man that everybody is watching. The whole world is watching to see where he ends up, and that, of course, being Juan Soto. Now, we have talked about Juan Soto pretty much every single week, and we have every right to do so because the Mets are in the thick of that market right now. And there's definitely some clues that maybe this ends around the winter meetings, maybe the first day of winter meetings, second day, third day, around there. But things are starting to wind down as we have seen some of these stages come through. We've seen teams meet with Juan Soto, and here is what we have gotten from the latest, and there are some other things that I can add afterwards. Now, as for the full-on shuffle watch, because for those of you who know Juan Soto, he does that little Soto shuffle, so I thought that would be a fun wordplay for everybody. But anyways, Buster Olney yesterday said that Soto talks expect teams will be forwarding offers this week. To date, the process has been about Soto meeting with teams / club officials and about those officials getting to know Soto, which I think we pretty much know from the first round of meetings. Now, as for John Heyman, he did get a little bit more specific in regards to some of the contenders for Soto, saying that the Yankees people believe that Soto, most like free agents, will take the best deal, which is why the Mets with Cohen are probably as well positioned than anyone. Steinbrenner publicly painted an accurate picture when he said that he had no idea how this will turn out. It is a battle of 5 or 6 teams, and some don't expect the Yankees to be the high bidders when bids start coming in soon. Then we had Bob Nightingale earlier today drop a little bit of a bombshell on all of us, basically saying that the Mets are the clear-cut favorite, according to executives around the league, simply because they don't believe there's a soul who will outbid owner Steve Cohen, while the Yankees have a price in mind that they do not want to succeed. That was from Bob Nightingale on USA Today. Again, we all are just waiting for the dotted line to be signed. But as for the current feeling about this, it seems like it's the most Mets positive week in regards to the Soto sweepstakes. Andrew, I will go to you. Lots of reports there are lots of reports leaning our way as of right now. We're feeling, confident by the minute. But, we'll see what happens. I mean, what are your current thoughts of some of the reports that you are seeing this last week?
I mean, same shit, and it's the most default stuff, you would say. Oh, shocker. Steve Cohen's going to have the biggest. Oh my God. It's almost like we've said this since day one. But again, I love that. And now you got Boris's, minion, which again, you play devil's advocate for the other side. This could be, hey, put this out. Oh, the Mets and the Yankees, you really want them. Oh, the Mets have the clear budget to try to get the Yankees to bite that up, bring their offer up. And again, we haven't officially got offers like Oli. Probably this week we'll start seeing official offers. But again, already putting out Met. Rosenthal, and he didn't put Rosenthal in foul territory, said that's he believed that's the most likely outcome is he's going to the Mets. And again, like we said it every single week, I have been hell steadfast with my rhinoceros body. If all he cares about is money, he will be a New York Met. If any other emotional thing happens, then we will get into an argument or a bidding into maybe he wants to go for maybe he wants to pull a Kevin Durant. He just goes to the Dodgers on a bullshit Ohtani deal, or he goes back to the Yankees, or he really likes Bryce Harper because he's homies with him and Trey, and he goes to Philly. There's again, if emotions are getting involved, then there'll be some discussion. If it's only about money, he will be a New York Met. He did not say no to $440 million at age 23 to say, you know what? When I get to the opportunity, I'm going to leave money on the table. That's not a type of guy to already say no to 440, which would have made him the highest paid player at the time. Would have been more than Trout at 23. To be like, when I got the opportunity to break everything, I'm going to leave a single penny on the table, especially with his agent and all his things. So Yankee fans can talk about it. The negative Mets fans can be, if it's only about money, he will be a Met. Because we've seen it. The Mets have had the highest bids for guys. But when emotions and external factors come in, then that's been. But when it was money, if it was a Scherzer or Verlander, where money, they blew him away, they came here. So that's the point. If it's all about money, I've said it since the beginning of all this, he will be a Met. If there are external emotional factors, then that's might be when the Mets lower their odds. But again, I've said this whole thing, and this is how it's going to be. The obnoxious, well, this camp's going to say that. And I bet you, and mark my words, a week from today, you're going to see Yankees out, or, John Heyman's going to say, Boris, and pretty much say in Boris terms, he's disappointed the Yankees aren't matching. And how much you want to bet the next time the Yankees make an offer, they'll raise their offer. This is how it's going to be. So the fact that Nightingale, Heyman, I have said it, I don't care what any of these guys say unless your name is Jeff Passan. So this is all bullshit playing agents and sides. Until Passan says something, which Passan has even said, he thinks the Mets are going. And that's the only one that of these writers that I care and would take valid. And Passan has said he thinks the Mets have a good shot. So until that notification that says breaking Soto franchise record deal, it's all leverage game, and I'm already sick and tired of it. And again, with the fact we have to talk about it, of course, it's the main thing. But again, all this other, especially from John Heyman, I don't give a rat's ass what John Heyman tweets out, because that's just Scott Boras pulling bullshit. I mean, Bob Nightingale is literally, I have the most credibility as Bob Nightingale. I mean, I think Frank in his $9,000 million home right now probably can get more predictions right than Bob Nightingale. Rosenthal and Passan, and Ken has said on foul territory, he thinks that's going to be a Met, and Passan has said the Mets have a good shot. So again, I felt comfortable throughout this whole process. But we got to probably another, 2 weeks of this. So 2 more boring, same segments. We're going to talk about the same things until we make the decision. We're going to get the offers this week, and hopefully we get a decision next week. And it's all done before I go to the winter meetings.
I mean, we'll figure out what happens. What I really did find funny is, someone who's supposed to be a podcaster in Andrew just basically saying, I don't want to talk.
I'm sick too.
Anyways,
so I'm sick. I'm here. So
listen, I'm fucking with you.
I
But
know,
when it
I
comes
know.
to the market overall with Soto, there were some rumors about the Phillies being involved in this. It seemed like Nightingale kind of shut that down. Rosie K coming in saying the Phillies have not met with Soto. And then I'm pretty sure he also went a little bit further saying that Boris and Soto have not even talked to the Phillies whatsoever, which I don't even know where that came out or whatever. Was it a bullshit Morosi tweet? I don't know what it was regarding, the Phillies in that Soto market, which I think that is a lot better because right now the market as it looks, if he does not end up with the Mets, he will go to an American League team where he will not be torturing us like he was when he was with the Nationals. Now, when it comes to, Ronald coming in here saying it's all about the money, and I think that, when it comes to, Richard saying Soto is throwing out mixed signals, I personally think that this is pretty much just Boris being Boris, but basically on high stakes with a client that is, at a generational type of level. So, Frank, if there's anything that you want to add in regards to this, because I think that there are some other feelings that you can put in here regarding how this is going to play out. But again, week to week, it's going to continue to be the same roller coaster that Scott Boras is going to put you on.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Andrew that I feel the Mets will have probably the best offer. And like I've said, then it's up to what Juan Soto wants to do, because I feel like as a fan, it's kind of out of our control in that sense, where it's like if the Mets offer the most money, and let's say if it's by quite a bit. There was that rumor about like maybe 50 million over, whatever it is. Let's just say it's quite a bit over. And he declines it. There's not much you could do. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, okay, well, we gave it our best effort. Like, we gave it our best shot. We offered the most amount of money. If he takes it, wonderful, he's on the team. If not, you have a really different way you can go with your offseason. You know what I mean? Like, you really could prioritize keeping what you have, like we were saying, but also you want to focus more on a Corbin Burns or maybe on some other things in the trade market. You now have the freedom to do that because you're not tied down to this record-setting contract that Juan Soto is going to ask for. So, but what I've said is that I hope it happens sooner than later, just so this offseason can really get going. Because one of the things that kind of drives me nuts is if you're a team that's really sorting out for a player and that player takes a long time to sign, by the time they make that decision, the other guys are off the board. So what I don't want to see happen is that, Teoscar signs somewhere, Santander signs somewhere, and then Soto makes his decision and the Mets don't get him. And you're like, okay, well, now who are we going to get? Because everyone else is already gone. So that's the one thing I don't want to see happen. But, I think overall, like with Andrew, I agree the Mets have a good shot. Does that guarantee it? No, but I think they definitely have quite a chance to do it.
I personally don't have that type of fear, to be honest, because I think that Soto goes first. Like, I know that Soto's going to go first. Hernandez, Santander, they're going to be there after in regards to some of the guys that are in on the Soto market. We just saw a report about the Jays being attached to guys like Santander. They're also in the Soto sweepstakes. So that's the type of feeling that I have where Soto's going to set this one out first. He's going to be the top choice. He's the top guy on the market. And, that's how we're going to maneuver this thing. Now,
I was just going to say real quick, too, with the Mets. Like, let's say, because you use the Blue Jays as an example. Like, it's one thing if you offer the most money, but I feel like being a team that, was at Game 6 of the NLCS in New York, in my opinion, is more appealing than going to Canada for a team that is really struggling, even if they offered you the same amount of money.
Canada's they're a
non-factor. Yeah, so exactly. So that's why I feel like the Mets are well positioned because they could offer the most money while also offering a good situation as far as like, no, this is a team that you could win with and kind of be the face of. Whereas even if he goes back to the Yankees, it's still Aaron Judge's team. So I feel like that's another thing that kind of also plays into your factor too.
I think it's just basically he's looking for the money, like that. That's pretty much it. And I think that's all we're really looking at with Boris. And maybe there is a way that they could drive the price up in regards to a team like the Yankees, who already traded for him a year ago. He played 1 year with them. And, there is a threat across the river there in the Mets, who have a lot of money to spend, a lot of money coming off the books, coming off of a National League Championship Series appearance. And listen, I think that the way that this kind of flowed this week, and I do agree in that sense of where Andrew kind of put it, of not really trusting anything regards to John Heyman. John Heyman is definitely a credited source. Let's just say that. He's gotten things wrong in the past, but we know that he definitely has a Boras type of mouthpiece as that he has been. He's very involved with Scott Boras, along with the New York Post. So then you're like, okay, well, this just seems like Boras leaks. This is what they're hearing, and according to sources of how this is being maneuvered. Then you get another piece in Bob Nightingale, who talks about it as, well, now the Mets are looked at as this clear-cut favorite with the amount of money that they can put out here. And they can, blow any offer out of the water. And then you're, okay, well, Bob Nightingale has never really been a Boras guy in any real way. He's never really been that big of a Boras leak guy. So then you're like, okay, well, if it's going over to other sources in USA Today with a guy like Bob Nightingale, then you're like, okay, well, maybe this is possible. But then you bring in the factor of, this is Bob Nightingale. We know what Bob Nightingale has done in the past. There's been times where we cannot trust this guy. Trevor Bauer and the Mets have a deal. We know what happened. We were live when that happened. Me and Frank, that was one of the first streams that we have done. But then you're like, okay, what's missing from this formula? What's missing from all positive Mets? What is happening from all negative regarding what's going on with the Yankees? The Mets are a clear-cut favorite. The Yankees, there was some confusion. What's missing? What's missing from the Yankees front? Andy Martino. You knew Andy Martino would come in here, try to, come in here, bring in his respect the pinstripes cooling agent, and, he's got to do that and cool everything off. Well, very interesting to say that, because on Baseball Night in New York, Andy Martino said that the Mets have some real advantages other than money to land Juan Soto. And he mentioned about the Mets having continuity in the owner, GM, and manager positions. He also mentioned that this may be something that is lacking in the Yankees pitch, with Brian Cashman likely to move on from the Yankees president of baseball operations in the next 2 years, which is interesting to say. Now, also, what has been confirmed from Andy Martino, he did say that no offers have been made. No bidding has been happened, so there is no favorite, because obviously he has to play the Yankees, riding the Steinbrenner family like it's a prize-winning horse. But when it comes to the Mets' overall chance, it seems like Andy Martino was leaning as to where, little bit more in the Mets' advantage of giving it a little bit more substance, because we've seen the Mets in the running for a lot of free agents, not get them, offer the most money, and not really be taken as much seriously as seriously. When it comes to Andy Martino saying something like that, first of all, I do question if he's okay, to be honest, because it's Andy Martino, and that's literally what the type of things that he does. But when it comes to the talk around this, I still think that you have to be cautious, because it's Scott Boras running and pulling the strings. We've seen this flood throughout different media sources about the Mets having a legitimate chance. I mean, what is the thought around that? It could change. Who knows? Like we've said, it could be intertwined. Who knows? Frank, I'll go to you. Multiple sources confirming things like this of the Mets' chance. I think that there's definitely a confidence level that's higher as compared to pieces like Yamamoto, who ended up going to the Dodgers. Pieces like Kevin Gausman, who they were after, who went to the Blue Jays. Other pieces out there that definitely turned down more money to go somewhere else because of stability. The Mets now have that stability right now with somebody like David Stearns, Steve Cohen with all his money, and then Carlos Mendoza contending for Manager of the Year and is not old as dirt as a piece like Buck Showalter. and completely overrated. Sorry, folks, it's true. But Frank, I mean, what is your take on this? I mean, do you think that there's definitely some more of substance as for this as compared to other free agents in the past, or do you think it's just, Boris could be blowing smoke up of everybody's ass? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really not sure yet because one of the things to consider is the fact that since Juan Soto did already play for the Yankees, he knows what playing for New York is like already. Whereas I feel like with someone like a Yamamoto or on a lesser extent Correa, because he played against New York a lot, but you don't exactly know quite what it's like. So you might have like a little bit of hesitation, like, do I really want to do that? How is that? I know there's a lot of pressure that goes on with that. So I feel like being that he's kind of already been in New York, it gives a little bit better of a shot. I feel like when it comes to recruiting internationally, like with the Yamamoto, it's tough. I mean, I feel like the suitors are much fewer, and like you kind of never know which direction they're going to really go. So I feel like with Soto, it's going to definitely be different as far as the kind of team that you're playing for, as far as the way they do business. Like you said, like wearing the pinstripes and just what comes with that and the seriousness compared to the pumpkins and grimaces and singing and dancing and signs that comes along with the Mets. It's different for sure. So that's something that maybe he wants to do. Maybe he wants to be serious and all about business. That could factor into it too. I mean, do you want the vibes and the friends? That's just something to do you want to be in on the fun, or do you just want to be kind of in the gray, just try to win even though you're not all that good as a team, and just kind of stick with that?
I mean, it's weird because I think that there is some substance as to where you're talking about, with the Mets kind of getting this stability from a piece like David Stearns, who has shown organizational stability when he was with Milwaukee. You also have a little bit of a lack of experience with this type of big market guy, with David Stearns, because he was not able to do that in Milwaukee. So I don't know what the confidence seems to be, but it seems like the Mets are being taken more seriously year by year. I'm not saying that they're completely considered the number one franchise to go. Obviously not. But it seems like the stability continues to go up the ladder every single year, which is definitely something we have been pointing to as to them possibly being a sustainable franchise. Andrew, you pointed up like the Statue of Liberty. So what do you have to say about this one?
It's kind of relating to kind of what you said of like, oh, Stearns isn't used to playing in the big boy money. But let's counter back a couple of years. And obviously, we know he's at the meeting. But who was the guy that it's Cohen's at the meeting. Cohen's this. Who was the guy that Scott Boras called at 2 a.m. sipping on a Bacardi in Hawaii? Yeah. He didn't call Billy Epler. He didn't call him. No, he called Cohen.
Absolutely.
And Cohen got the deal done. Here's my thing. Which, again, I've said it. I've said it multiple times about Stearns. I love that he can build on these $10 and build a 26-man roster with $10. I like that. But you need to adapt and be, you got fuck you money, spend the fuck you money. Cohen at least is, with him being there and him being a fan, like they both are, you've seen that where Cohen is kind of not going over Stearns. This isn't like Artie Moreno has been going over his GM. But again, we saw it with Correa, and we've seen, obviously we know Stearns was at the meeting. We know that. But the fact that it's been like, oh, it's been Cohen's pursuit. It's him. Does this kind of maybe take some of that, not the pressure off Stearns, but the fact that the whole mass media has been putting at is, oh, it's Cohen going after Soto. It's not Stearns. Yes, Stearns maybe is doing all of the micromanaging, tiny roster manipulation like he's done, but the fact that like the mass media, everyone's just saying it's like, oh, it's Cohen's pursuit for Soto. It's like it's not Stearns and Cohen. It's like, oh, Stearns is like Stearns. You can go dumpster diving. I'm gonna go get the flaming yawn. Like it feels that way, and maybe that is a good balance. But yet again, I don't really. And again, we don't know. We're not in the meetings.
I think that's more of just an image of the Mets' money flexibility that they have. They talk about Cohen having that type of money. It's not like it's not Stearns paying.
But yet again,
the checks.
Yes, but again, like the Correa thing was a one-off. But the fact that like Oris isn't calling, the president of baseball or GM at the time. Yes, I understand that. But then Cohen's the one making the deals. I don't want this, again, it would be a good balance, again, to have, the big market, small market combined. But again, we don't know. We don't know if this is him going full over and trying to be hands-on. But again, he's been doing it with, his wife and the meetings and stuff like that. Again, I'm just playing into it. But
therefore, let's just say that this is the type of guy for him to go all balls to the wall on. I mean, let's be real for a second. I saw somebody in the chat say something, saying like 50 AAV for like 14 years is too much or something. I don't know who put that in the chat. We're way past the moral of what is too much for Juan Soto. I mean, when we're talking about this type of talent, 100% no matter what, by any means necessary, the Mets are going to try to sign him. And if it takes breaking the entire bank, so be it. Because we've talked about it before of the possible deferred payments that he could have in regards to not crazy like the Shohei contract where they're basically money laundering. But when it comes to Juan Soto, they're definitely going to bring down the luxury tax hit as to where they can build a little bit more of a roster, and Stearns is going to have a little bit, more of that type of flexibility. I do think that there is a little bit more of a certain respect that comes with a guy like David Stearns from Steve Cohen, where he brings in a little bit more of that input. Because I do think that there was a little bit less of impulse control when it came to the Correa situation. Billy Epler, we already know that he's not highly regarded as a general manager. And right now he isn't. Right now he isn't because of what went down towards the end there. When you talk about somebody like David Stearns, I think that there is some input. Right now when it comes to a piece like Juan Soto, I do agree with you that Steve Cohen's wallet is definitely going to take a front seat as compared to the overall roster building with somebody like David Stearns. I do agree with that. But, I don't see any way where David Stearns, even though I think that he can take control of the reins at one point, and Cohen doesn't even need to be involved when they have a sustainable winner, or possibly they have a sustainable winner. I don't think there's ever going to be a touch in, and I agree with you in this sense, where Stearns says, oh, that's too much for Soto. He's never going to say that. That's never going to happen. And for those of you who believe that, it's not going to happen. It's basically whatever Cohen is willing to do. It seems like he's more balls to the wall. We saw, some reports that maybe they're willing to go over the $700 million. I mean, it's possible it could happen with what you have from Steve Cohen. But when you think about it right now, and even though the Yankees had their flaws, they were able to go all the way to the World Series with the foundation of Judge and Soto. You can also look at it from multiple years. Lindor and Soto. Listen, Lindor's not Judge. We know he isn't. But Lindor and Soto, two superstars of this game. That definitely gives you quite a building block, along with a lot deeper of a team compared to the Yankees. I'm not trying to slam the Yankees or anything, but the Mets definitely had a deeper team. Yankees had a lot of injuries. Let's just say that. But when it comes to, Cohen giving out that type of money, I do agree that there's definitely not going to be a step in with David Stearns saying, okay, you know what? I think this is too much. Let's not give him $685. I instead want to give him $675. I don't think there's going to be a penny pinch in that way, because I think we're way past that right now. Like, what is an extra million? What is an extra 10 million at this current moment? I do still have a little bit of fear of how this is kind of going to be maneuvered, but I do agree in that sense with you, where I don't think there's going to be that much of Stearns' interruption, but I think that he also does want some flexibility as to where he wants to build a roster that is 26-man deep, as compared to a team that is top-heavy and is really struggled in that sense. Yes, you have Juan Soto. The Mets have never had a caliber hitter such as Juan Soto. They've had some great hitters, no caliber of Juan Soto, who also is going to provide that for years. I do agree with that in that sense for you. If there's anything that you want to add, because I know that there's tons of things that you can discuss on this one, because there's a lot of direction you can go in in regards to, Juan Soto, who we know it's going to come down to the money in terms of somebody like Scott Boras representing him.
Yeah, and I guess, this isn't really revolving about the money, but this was something that got every Met fan all pissed off, it seemed like, and it was from Heyman, which is from Boras, is the opt-outs. Like, we would have thought this would have been a Bryce Harper 13, I'm never seeing another team unless, you trade me, but, like, again, I'm taking the bag and I'm only going one. The fact that there was so many people pissed off, there's no way. I kind of see it as, I'd fucking love it if there's opt-outs. Twofold. One, if it's after the third year, you're telling me you're getting his age 26, 27, and 28 years of Juan Soto. So you're telling me you could keep him motivated to want more money during his 3 best peak years? Yes, please. Because again, there is also there's that fear that he gets the bag and he gets fat and lazy. Not physically, but he gets his bag. I don't gotta, I don't have to. I've made my generational wealth. I'll draw my walks. I'll be an 800 OPS guy, a bad Juan Soto. But if you have the opt-outs, it takes that fear away because he wants to be Manny Machado. Say, I played my 5 years and got an extra $150 million after on that extension, the extra 5 years. So for me,
another Boras client, by the way.
Another Boras client. But the fact that there was, this uproar that I saw, of negativity being like, now walk away because there's opt-outs, I would guarantee, I probably wouldn't be year 3. I would like to, if I'm giving him a 15 or 14-year deal, I'd like to guarantee I get 5 years of Juan Soto. But yet, let's play how the Mets historically go. So let's be negative for 2 seconds. I know I've been very positive lately, it's not. But let's say the Mets go back to being the Mets. And let's say in 2 years, all shit falls apart, but Juan Soto's still good. You have that fear of the opt-out. You could cash out Juan Soto for prospects at the trade deadline. Again, there's a lot of benefits to having the opt-outs. I get not wanting to lose him, because if you're going to give him 700, let's say he breaks that AAV and Ohtani number, and you're like, we only got him for 3 years, that's also a benefit to an extent. You got out of that deal. Yes, maybe you have to pay him more after 3 years, but again, if let's say you're fearing of the contract, then he opts out and he leaves, or let's say you trade him and you play that benefit, there are benefits to having the opt-out. I would just love him to be here for 14 years, and I'm okay with that. He'll just be like Nelson Cruz at age 42, hitting DH and still getting on base and hitting 25 homers, but I'm fine with that. But it also gives you kind of a way out if you are fearful of looking at Xander Bogaerts and Trey Turner's deal of you have to pay this guy to age 42 or age 40. The opt-outs give you the benefit of say, hey, you get 3 to 4 really good years out of him. Let's say you win a World Series in that time. Maybe you just let him walk. He opts out. You get your ring and say, hey, I appreciate the ring. Let's get that contract off the books and then find the next. And you're not going to find the next Juan Soto, but find that next, quality superstar. Again, I'll see what you guys think. I think the opt-outs are fine, but there was that big kind of hell opened up because he wanted opt-outs.
I mean, I'm not really concerned in regards to the opt-outs of that because, yes, of course, there's the prime years of example. There is the Manny Machado thing where maybe he does get extended in that way. I don't see the Mets being a team that lets somebody like Juan Soto walk if they end up getting him, and with these types of ways to address these. Now, for those of you in the comments, I'm seeing a lot of, pieces saying Soto is a very good hitter, but the Mets have players on par with him. I say this in the most sincere way possible. No, they do not. And for those of you if you want to bring up Strawberry or Carter or Piazza, still absolutely not. No one is compared to somebody like Soto. Now, listen, I do agree that the Mets need to build a more complete team, and we did definitely give you a little bit more of a preview of how they can possibly do that. The Mets have a lot of money coming off the books, okay? They have, right now in active money, it's what is it, 120 million active as of right now. They have Lindor locked up, making $34 million a year, which he 100% deserves. If for those of you who disagree with that, I don't even know what to tell you anymore. I mean, top 3 in MVP, finished second, was incredible this year. When you add in a piece like Juan Soto, most likely the Mets, if they were to get him, you bring it down as to where, yes, the AAV will be high, but maybe it's like $40 million to the luxury tax hit. So you have those two pieces in Lindor and Soto. Let's say the opt-outs aren't even a thing. It's just fully guaranteed, or it's a 10-year deal, whatever it is. It's a young Juan Soto. He's going to be 26 years old. You have Lindor and Soto in their prime of what you can build around. You have Nimmo there as well. You'll see what happens with Pete Alonso. Lindor and Soto, with the financial flexibility that you have with Steve Cohen, they're going to be able to make a deep roster because we know that the Mets are willing to go over that luxury tax threshold. So we know that the Mets are willing to go to those high stakes, even though they will have another piece such as Soto on there making as much money as he is. So, yes, it is 2 players. And yes, you need a 26-man roster. But when you're talking about the overall workload taken on by a guy like Francisco Lindor last year, a little bit of that workload gets taken off of him for a piece like Juan Soto, who also can complement it from the top of the lineup. Yes, there are pieces that they should go after, but there are also some cheap options that hopefully maybe you see some of these prospects pan out. Maybe you see some of these younger guys pan out. The thing is that you can have this franchise set in stone with an overall core of players such as Lindor, Soto. You can add Nimmo to that mix. I know that he did not have a great year, but I'm definitely not really worried about that going forward as of right now. You have pieces on this team that can make it a deep team. There are other things they need to address after Soto. We agree with that. But you can't pass up a piece like Juan Soto, who would easily be, at the pace that he is going, the greatest hitter your franchise would ever have. I don't see somebody like Piazza or Darryl Strawberry. I don't see them having that perennial 400 plus on base percentage every single year, slugging over 500, a 30 to 40 home run threat, and being able to do it at the start of his career where he was 19 years old. I don't see that type of hitter in guys like Strawberry and Piazza. Strawberry and Piazza were fantastic. They were great players for this franchise. You're talking about another level with Juan Soto. I understand that Juan Soto is not the greatest defender. Maybe he's not the best maybe he's not the best base runner. But when it comes to a player like Juan Soto, of the transcended talent that he could give you, that he could be, that definitely can lift you in that way. This is the type of investment that they should possibly go after. This guy is 25 years old. He's going to be 26. So I definitely believe that Soto, again, I don't think that Juan Soto is a desperate need. And if they don't end up with him, it's whatever. Because I do think that there's other pieces they can fill in to make a deeper roster. They can look at that. But when it comes to a piece like Juan Soto, that is somebody that they need to pursue and try as hard as they can. Because when you have that little duo tandem, they have a lot of superstars for a lot of these teams. We've seen a Dodgers team win the World Series this year, adding in a piece like Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani pitches. He didn't pitch this year. Juan Soto is another one of those guys on that level of superstar that you are set for maybe a decade with him and Lindor on your team.
don't use Otani as the example. Use Juan Soto himself as the example. Look at where the Yankees kept ending up without Juan Soto. They get Juan Soto, and all of a sudden they're in the World Series. Like, that's the kind of impact that he could have on a ball club. So you don't have to use Otani. Use the guy we're talking about. Soto himself has already shown you the kind of impact he could have when not having him versus having him, because he could literally carry an offense. He's that good.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what he can. He's such a transcendent talent in that way that, like, I mean, pretty much like 4 times or 5 times out of 10, we talk about this all the time. A great hitter fails 7 out of 10 times. 4 times or 5 times out of 10, he is going to provide something to your offense to get it going. If you're getting that guy from the 2-hole behind Lindor, I mean, that is a scary top 2. Now, listen, there's still the rest of the lineup you got to fill in. And I think that they're definitely going to address that, because there's already guys that they're bringing in, such as Jose Siri, who can fill in those types of margins. That could also complement the, lower level defense that you get from Juan Soto, though he has a strong arm. He's not the greatest defensively. So they're definitely going to bring in those complementary pieces. And I think that that is definitely going to be something that they look at. Listen, I'm not someone who, is the big fish guy. I've always talked about making a deep team. But when it comes to this level of a player, I don't think I'm overrating him in that such. I don't think I am, because this is one of the greatest hitters you will ever see. And when you sign him, he will be 26 years old. This is something you don't see. You don't see a 26-year-old free agent. I mean, maybe you see a 22-year-old free agent in Roki Sasaki this year, but that's a little bit of a different case. I mean, Andrew, if there's anything that you want to add from this, because we can definitely continue to talk about the impact that you can have with Juan Soto, not just on your roster, but him just locked down in that sense. I know you talked about the opt-outs, but I think that the overall impact of Juan Soto, of the position he's in, 26 years old, it goes way beyond the let's get a star to just get a star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, we've been saying it all the time. Again, this is the type of guy who is a franchise-altering piece. Like, yes, like, again, the Yankees were awful. Like, look, even with, Aaron Judge winning MVPs every year, what do they always do when it came to playoff time? Choke. Yes, did they get blessed with the easiest road to the World Series this year, but who hit the game-winning homer to send them to the World Series? The guy who, because you damn well know Aaron Judge damn sure ain't doing it. Juan Soto does. So again, the value that he brings, and I've already seen, the money, it's too much money. Who the hell cares? Is it coming out of your direct deposit? Does it come out of your personal bank account? No. So why the hell do you
care? If it
care?
did, you'd all be in deep shit. I can tell you.
Exactly. Like, and this is what, and it's not just the Met. It's a general. Well, it's too much money if it's signing a certain person. You're paying. Is it coming out of your bank account? Who cares? And I've always said, you don't pay good players great money, average players good money. If we're talking about a superstar, I don't care what it costs. You get that player on the team. And again, we are even seeing teams like the Blue Jays, who, yes, are making a run. They are frauds. They are Canadians. They think freaking ham is bacon. They're not a real threat. But they have made it clear. We saw it last year.
All right.
There's your clip. There's your clip for TikTok.
All right, man. Cool.
We've seen it. We've seen it clear, and this has come from Rogers themselves. There is their regular budget for their team operations, and then last year it was the Otani budget, and this year, supposedly, there's a Soto budget. And if Steve Cohen is saying, David, stay in the dumpster. I'm going to spend a lot of money. You're going to be scared. It doesn't affect your willingness to spend other things, then it shouldn't matter. If teams not just the Mets, if teams we saw about Otani are taking a separate chunk of money and say, that is the generational fund. Those only go to the generational players and still having money for the rest of the roster, then it shouldn't matter what it costs. If it's $50 a year, if it's $49 a year, he's going to top Judge at 40. So, like, the fact that, like, if anyone's like, oh my God, he's going to top that. Like, and if it's not, because Ohtani's, again, like you said, it's welfare checks. It's not a real contract. Him making $2 million a year, it's not real. Compared to he should be making 70, that's a weaker move than KD, but we're not ready to have that conversation. But again, like, he's going to break the AAV record for a position player, and we shouldn't be complying. And he's going to probably do it by a wide mark, especially if he's with the Mets, because the Mets can just be, hey, if the Yankees are going to offer you 43, let's say the Blue Jays are offering you 36, here's 50. Like 50 a year. Take it, or like, well, again, we'll make it, and you can do that because you have Steve Cohen. And the other thing, which again everyone said, like, he hasn't gone to the like I said, the FU money. Like Yamamoto, like, he was similar offers. We haven't seen him whip it out and say, come get me. Here's $50 million more than anyone. Don't look at it. Don't think about it. It's mine. We haven't really seen him do that.
No,
like we've had the facade, but the fact that ever since he's taken over, we've seen him just goo goo gaga for, like we saw with Stearns, and we've seen it with Soto. There's exceptions he's made. Obviously, the pursuit for Stearns. He's wanted Soto since when he's been on the Nationals. I think this is the different one, and the fact that it's a position player compared to a pitcher with Yamamoto. Again, this is a guy that's going to affect your team every day compared to Yamamoto's once every 5th day or 6th day, because Japanese pitchers pitch once a week. Besides the point, you would expect at some point that evil GM, the evil rich millionaire that everyone thinks he is going to be the guy. You finally see that, and the Yankees be like, whoa, Steve Cohen bullied us and offered $700 million. We're so poor. We only wanted to give him $550. Because, that's what's going to happen. Hal's already crying poor, being like, well, we only acquired him for 1 year. So, again, we're going to have this conversation next week or 2 weeks until it's officially done. I'm already tired of talking about him. So, if we got, unless Frank, you've been quiet. Frank, what do you think? You got anything else you want to chit in there?
Oh, no, I just like to sit here and just do absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm not busy at all. I'm not trying to do, two things at one time while you guys just get to do the fun part of spamming on your keyboards and not actually try to do the show and try to commentate and do two different conversations at the same time. So, I mean, as far as Juan
he's getting
Soto,
old, people. Leave him alone,
as far
all right?
as Juan Soto
let him go at his own pace, all right?
It may seem irrational to the kind of money he's going to get. But again, when you have the richest owner, these are the kind of things that you can do with this much money coming off of the books. And there's still a lot that needs to happen. So I'll just start with this because I was in the middle of typing it, but since I'm speaking, it's just quicker this way. If the Mets get Soto, that doesn't necessarily mean that Alonso is 100% gone. Like, I think there is a scenario based off how much money came off the books where they could get Soto, yet still keep Alonso. And, don't forget the kind of season Vientos had. I mean, what does that look like? I see improvements coming from Alvarez. So there still is a line left to like. I mean, small sample size, but we saw from Acuna. But again, if you want certain names from me, that's not my job. That's what David Stearns does. David Stearns is going to get you some guys that maybe you don't know the names, but they're still going to be productive players for you. So I think overall, it's like, sure, like I could say, oh, do you want to give Bieber a flyer or Eovaldi or Blake Snell? Like, I could give you a bunch of names, Jock Peterson. I could rattle a bunch of guys, but who the Mets are actually going to get, we have to wait and see. I mean, the offseason has just started and they have a lot of a team to build. So, I mean, we'll just kind of see where they're at with all been done.
Again, I don't think Juan Soto is going to stop David Stearns from doing what he did this year of making a very deep team that got all the way to the National League Championship Series. Yes, there were some craziness involved, and we've seen them get bailed out by a few players. There's been inconsistencies, yes, and there are things that they are looking to adjust in that way. And listen, I think that there are people asking for those complementary pieces, such as Grand Admiral Shanahan. Listen, when it comes to those complementary pieces, here's how I would direct this one for you. I think that there's tons of directions that they can go after Soto. After whatever Soto, let's say they sign Soto and they get some of these other pieces. We know what they have to address. We know how they're going to have to shift along with first base if Pete Alonso leaves. Here's how we can deal with this, okay? You can hit the subscribe button. You can put on notifications, and we will have plenty of videos for you suggesting what the Mets could possibly do. But at this current moment, this is a live show. We're telling you what we are doing live. We're talking about what is happening at this current moment. What's holding up all this offseason talk? That is Juan Soto. Juan Soto is the top free agent on the market. So, I'm going to tell you right now, listen, and if you're upset that we're not going to give you those types of pieces because we're all just looking at Soto at this current moment because he is the top free agent, forgive us. And the Mets it's been said that we will be involved heavily, maybe have the highest offer. Then we will give it to you. And listen, you will get those types of answers. Whether you think I'm going to not give it to you or not, you're going to get those types of answers in tons of videos. So make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on post notifications. We have tons of videos in plan. We don't just do this podcast. We have tons of videos in the works right now of pieces that they can look at if they get Soto or if they don't get Soto. But right now, we need to see where Juan Soto ends up. Now, as for the overall Soto conversation, I think that right now, it's pretty easy to just say that the Mets are going to be the highest offer. And I do think that when it comes to, the offers that they can possibly put in here, I've always had this feeling, and it's not really anything as to the date of when can the Mets put in the highest offer? When will the Mets put in the highest offer? I want to know what is the highest offer they need to put in. Because when it comes to Juan Soto in this overall business, in this overall bidding, yes, we had Martino talk about the stability of this franchise, and it probably won't be money that just brings him over here. And I'm glad to hear that. But when it comes to the bidding, I would not be surprised that if it takes $50 million more, maybe $60 million more than the second highest bid for the Mets to get him. Because I've talked about it in that cautious way. Again, maybe the Mets go to that extremes. Maybe they don't. Maybe they get to that 700 threshold and stop. Maybe they go to 720. Maybe they go to 730. You never know. But I don't know. Again, I don't know if you guys have that type of feeling of the bidding, because we know Scott Boras in these leverage talks. But let me know what you guys think about that, as to where the Mets, maybe they need to win this by a big margin in order to win this type of bidding. Because now that we've put it all out there, we're like, okay, it doesn't matter what they offer or what they give to him. Who cares if it's too much money? How much more money than the other team would that possibly be? Andrew, I'll go to you on this one, because I think, the market, because it's going to come down to all of these teams. But when it comes to Juan Soto, how far do you think that they're going to go in terms of the difference between the second highest bid, which we don't know if it'll be the Yankees or not? I don't know what do you believe would possibly take to break them away? Or do you think that there is some stability that he's looking at? Because I don't know what's a Boris leak, what's bullshit or not. And that's kind of the thought I've had in the back of my head of how much more are they going to have to offer in order to outlast this one?
I mean, when it comes to, again, we need to see what the first benchmark is. Is it 550? Is that the starting point? Because I think that's where we figure the total. If all things are equal, I think they have to probably be 25 to 35 million higher to make sure they get him at the bare minimum. I think, let's say, I've said that 14 at 686, which is 49 a year, is what I think it gets done. So if you're telling me it's 686 is what the Yankees are offering, then I think you have to go over that 7 mark, because one, it would hit breaking Ohtani, and it breaks the AV. So if let's say the Yankees offer is that 49 a year over 14 years, then as Frank's about to go murder more children. I think you have to, if it's like, again, pushing that Ohtani number, I think it could be a fact of whoever breaks that Ohtani number is probably getting him. So let's say, again, 49 a year times 14 is like 686, I believe. Let's say that's the Yankee offer. I think the Mets have to go over that 700 mark to make sure they get him, because Boras can double cap. Hey, got the AAV, and I beat that two-way Kevin Durant.
Yeah. Frank, I mean, what do you think is what would be the holdup for this? Do you think it's maybe looked at as even more than just money? Because we've talked about the Mets having their only advantage is money. They're going to take the money. They're going to give you that. But from what we saw from Andy Martino, we don't know if it's smoke and mirrors or not. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on that possibility of the Mets giving you quite a difference in overall bidding?
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if the Yankees went to a 14-year, like near $50 million offer as well, because then I feel like once you get into that kind of territory, you're kind of wondering, like, are you just kind of bidding against yourself, so to speak? I mean, I feel like who else is really going to go in that at stratosphere? I mean, the only other team I could think of would be the Dodgers. So if you're not bidding against them, I just think that, like we've talked about, like, it's generally speaking, in team building terms, it's not smart to spend that much on one player. So I don't see a ton of teams going to that number when they realistically can't. So that's kind of where I'm at, is that, like, yes, I could see it being, like I said, maybe starting like in the 550 to 580 range, and then see where it goes from there, see who else is left standing as far as like what offers are on the table. But just to ensure that you get him, fine. I think maybe the opt-outs might be where things get a little weird. I feel like there might be other teams that are more willing to provide the opt-outs than the Mets. That would be a potential hurdle I could see as a possibility. But other than that, I mean, I feel like we've said, when it comes down to it, the dollars should be the most important thing, and the Mets are going to provide that. So we'll see what it all comes down to.
Well, I mean, I think that, just to bring the heat down a little bit, because I think that the chat is for some reason getting, very frustrated in this regard. I think that when we talk about these overall questions for the offseason, most of them have to do with centered around, of course, Juan Soto as of right now, but that there's also Pete Alonso. Now, we had Daniel earlier ask us, as I want to get into some viewer questions here, and then we'll cut it off in about 10 or 15 minutes, asking how much would you be giving to Alonso if you are David Stearns? Now, it's really, really hard to say without getting, what number gets presented to Juan Soto, even though he's not going to be in the Juan Soto market. And I do agree with Frank in that regard, saying that you could possibly keep Alonso while also bringing in somebody like Juan Soto. Andrew, I'll go to you. The max offer, I know that you've been very critical of bringing back or even noticing anything that Pete Alonso has done for 6 years. But, I mean, what do you think about Alonso's free agency? Of, what would you be giving as the final offer?
I also really appreciate in this comment, who's David? I appreciate that we're David Steams, not Stearns. So, again, because we're fake GMs, I appreciate the dedication of it's David Steams instead of Stearns. Again, we've got into this argument too many damn times about this fat polar bear. What it's going to be, 6 years, I guess, is that. Because, again, for all things, he doesn't want to take a Snell type deal. So, if I'm giving you 6, you're only going to get probably 21 a year, because you're not better than Freddie. You're not breaking that AAV from Freddie. So you're between Olsen and Freddie, and I think Olsen's better than you. So 6 times 21 is 126. That's all you're getting. Like, you get you a little bit of term. You're right in that top 3 in first baseman, because, again, you're not better than Olsen. You're not better than Freeman. So you're put where you're supposed to be. And if somebody like the Washington Nationals wants to come in and overpay for you, if let's say they don't get Alex Bregman, go enjoy DC, brother. You'll fit right in. But again, 6 years, 21 a year at 126 would be my max offer.
I mean, Andrew, Frank, wow, I'm mixing you two up now. Frank, I think it's really easy to look at this from the orange and blue goggles, of course, when you're looking at it from Mets fans. But the overall market for a first baseman, it's hard to say investing into that type of non-premium position. Let's just say that. It's a power first position. There's not really much defense that is add into it. We know that Pete Alonso not the great defender as compared to some of the other contracts that have been dealt out. We know that Pete Alonso, he's a power hitter. We know that Pete Alonso give you 35, 40 home runs every single year. But as for the limit, I think that there is one. But what do you think about the overall market of Pete Alonso? Do you agree with Andrew in that sense of like, what is it? What did you say? 6 years,
21 a year, 126. 126.
Okay.
Ain't fucking paid 150, yeah. 6 times 21.
6 one's 26. Would you put that in that type of range of what you would offer to Pete Alonso?
I think that's a pretty fair deal. I mean, because like we said, realistically, it's like who would spend more on Alonso than what Freeman is making? Because it was kind of got stuck with Soto as far as like what the markets are. Like you mentioned, first base is not that premium position where you do see these massive, massive payouts. So I don't see another organization really doing that. And like Andrew said, if they do, so be it. But once again, it comes with that, like we've talked about, what the scenario is with Soto and what the scenario is without Soto. If I do have Soto and someone overpays him, fine. If I don't have Soto, then I might be a little more inclined to bid a little more just to retain what I have, just so I have some kind of big bat in my lineup. But if that doesn't work out either, then I'm really, really focusing on starting pitching. I feel like that's got to be where a lot of the money is shelled out, because that is a position that does get very big contracts. And that is a position that the Mets could really use right now. And you're always going to need going forward. It's just always extremely important when you're in the postseason. So for me, like we said, it kind of depends on what I've already committed to other players by the time it's all said and done. But, Pete's the guy that actually wastes this thing out and takes a long time before he signs. And again, I can't hold up my whole off season for him. So like I said, you go off from the fair deal of 6 years at around $21 million. And once again, if he takes it, great. But if not, I have other things to move on to and to finish up. And then if he takes that at the end, fine. But once again, if he doesn't, I already kind of did what I need to do for this off season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm looking at this in the sense, and I've said this before, I'm fine with Alonso and I'm fine without him. Like, I really have looked at it past, especially with this free agent market, of the flexibility that the Mets have. Listen, I think that it's 6 years is the max that I'm going to give to him. I mean, it's like, what, like 6 years, maybe like what the max I give him is like 6 years, 140, what Javier Baez got. I mean, like something like that in that sense. Obviously, Javier Baez is a little bit more, or at least he was more toolsy than somebody like Pete Alonso. But I think the thing that I look at it is, yes, you have this Scott Boras client in Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has been a Met. He has been a great Met. He has been one of the best hitters from this franchise. He is going to shatter the home run record if he comes back. But when it comes to doing something different or looking on the other side, we haven't had much of this success from with Pete Alonso here. This year with Pete Alonso, we went all the way to the NLCS. You can break that. We also know that during this run to the playoffs, he was not himself. He was not the Pete Alonso that we were used to seeing. I'm not saying that we are fine without Pete Alonso and we're better off. We could just let him walk. Let's just go. But if there are other opportunities out there to make the team better that don't include Alonso, I'm going to pivot to those. And I hate to say that for, Alonso super fans, for Mets fans who only have, like their heart that goes out to their own players. Probably the main reason as to why Jeff McNeil's still here. But when it comes to fan favorites and that type of emotional attachment, and you look at this free agent market, there's other things you can direct to. There's not just, well, Soto's out there, we're going to go after Soto. Alonso has to be the next domino to fall for the Mets. It can't just be that, because there's other things that they need to address. We've talked about this before. There is 14 free agents going onto the free agent market. onto the market this year. So there's going to be moves that are going to be made. I'm hoping that maybe we have some of the young guys come through that, maybe fill in some of those roles into those stop gaps. But right now we don't have that big of a luxury. We have Mark Vientos as one of the young guys. We know that Alvarez is going to be the starting catcher. So that pretty much cheaps it out at this current moment in those two positions, no matter where Mark Vientos ends up playing, whether it's first base, third base, or DH. But when it comes to the overall Alonso, this is one thing that I think is a really good point from Rosie K, saying Alonso, it's not an emotional attachment. It's replacing his power. And listen, I don't want to view this as a Moneyball type of look where you're like, okay, let's replace this in aggregate. Not looking at it in that way. But I know for a fact that if you replace Pete Alonso's power with Juan Soto, it's a pretty good replacement for the power of Pete Alonso. Not to mention you have a piece such as Mark Vientos, who has established himself as a major league bat. Who knows if he has a sophomore slump or not? We know he has that direct power. I'm not saying that he has Alonso's 40 home run power. But what I'm saying is there's other power sources that you can get from as compared to just signing down Pete Alonso of he's my power hitter, that's it. I think that there is some power upside from this team that you can get from not just locking down Alonso and that's it. Now listen, when it comes to Alonso, I'd be fine to keep him. If he wants to stay, absolutely. If we want to retain him, go ahead. If you want to pursue bringing him back, go right ahead. Obviously, the focus is shifted to another Boris client right now. But when it comes to Alonso, I'm not going to be very distraught in terms of the business side of baseball if he ends up walking, because that's just the reality of the situation. And I'm sorry to say that to some teams, to some people who believe in retaining their own guys. Yes, but with this type of market, there's other pieces that can give you more value on a big contract than somebody like Pete Alonso. If you guys agree with that, you disagree with that, anything else that you want to add in regards to that, because I think we'll wrap it up in about 5 minutes here. And guys, let us know if you have any other questions in this chat we'll address too. But I think that that's kind of like how I'm looking at it. Of course, we still need to see stuff about Soto, but when it comes to pieces like Pete Alonso, right now I'm very indifferent in that. I don't think it's really a must. Let's keep our guy because he is our guy, and he's only been in the orange and blue, so we need to continue that way. There's other directions you can look in.
Yeah, I think the struggles with runners on base definitely was frustrating. Like we talked about, the lack of just getting on base too, and it really comes down to the point where, are you paying just for home runs? That's something that also is like when we talk about spending money, especially big contracts. And also, I feel like the thing that bothers me the most, I've said, is you're paying for 30 and beyond. That's the thing that gets really dicey, and that's where the years really play into effect. And it's kind of one of the biggest examples of what I'd be okay giving him more than the 21 million, whatever you want, fine, but much less years, because I don't think it's smart to be doing that when you are already doing that with Brandon Nimmo, because you gave him an 8-year deal going into an age 30 season, and he's an outfielder. So I feel like you don't want to keep making a habit of that, of eventually, because right now, the money looks good and the contracts are on the board and their ages look good. But then there becomes a point in time when these contracts are winding down and you're like, okay, well, we have a bunch of guys who are above age 35 that we're paying really good money to. And that's where you get into trouble as far as team building. So I don't want to make a habit of having too many of those on my books at some point in time.
I think the recency bias also kind of comes into it in regards to Alonso, because it was not a great year for him. It was definitely a career down year, but also you look at it in terms of him going into the age of 30. This is not a position that fairly ages well in overall skill. when it comes to a piece like Pete Alonso, who, again, he's going to be a perennial home run hitter every single year. Like, he's going to be that power bat, and he will get you the 30 to 40 home runs no matter what, whether he's on the upswing or the downswing. It comes to a point where I feel like if you got the 2022 Pete Alonso, where he was great with runners in scoring position, he gave you those 40 home runs, tons of extra base hits, was career low in strikeout rate, walking as the usual 10% that he does, we would probably be having a different conversation. I do think we could have be having that. But then you get to 2023 and 2024 where you see some things diminishing where he's still productive, but it's not like, I need, no matter what, he is the basis of this offseason. Because right now, in the thick of the Soto talks, I'm not saying replace Alonso with Soto, but that's a pretty good bet in terms of overall offensive production. Because Pete Alonso can give you that. Pete Alonso can give you that power production. Juan Soto can do everything known to man with his types of skills. Like, that's a different level of hitter you're talking about as compared to Pete Alonso. And listen, Carlos Ortiz saying Alonso is not Conforto. Conforto was not worthy to bring back. Alonso is. And listen, I agree with that. I understand. I agree with that in terms of, Pete Alonso, of what he can provide. Because Conforto, he had like 1 year of like the 30 home runs, 50 extra base hit. Like, he had like 1 year in that, like 2017, 2019, he was really good. And then it just kind of flopped since then. 2020, he was good, but it's a 60-game season.
Got no bar fight.
Pete Alonso is that type of player that can give you that type of power. But I also could get that type of 40 home run power from Juan Soto. I'm not saying that Juan Soto can hit me 50 home runs like Shohei can and like Pete Alonso did in his rookie year. But what I'm saying is the overall offensive value that you get from Juan Soto, you bring him in, I'm not blinking an eye if they end up losing Pete Alonso. And again, like I said, I probably would blink an eye if he had a 2022 Alonso season this year, but he didn't. And what we saw Pete Alonso, as for what he was able to do throughout his Mets career, very well, he was not able to do it. Just saying. And listen, I'm not saying, again, like, this is another factor you can put in, the Pujols, the Howard, the Fielder, the Chris Davis, they regressed considerably. Like, this is how, it's not really of how I look at it from comparison to other contracts. It's the fact that Pete Alonso, he's coming off a year where he was still productive, but wasn't doing the Pete Alonso things that we know could get him paid. So I'm not really in the boat of, this is our number one priority. Because after Juan Soto, I'm pivoting to the pitching market. And we all know we have to pivot to the pitching market. Andrew, you're smiling at me. If there's anything you want to say.
Oh, do I really have to defend this Jabba the Hutt polar bear? You know what? I'll do it. I'll begin. So that was negative today. I gotta get back to the positive. Here's my thing. Yes, Soto, again, different fucking stratosphere compared to Pete Alonso. My thing is, which I think Frank has mentioned throughout, not today, but in the past, okay, replacing Soto is an upgrade. Again, we're taking the lateral one-to-one move, we're getting an upgrade. But if we're looking at trying to build a lineup, yes, again, I'm not overpaying for Pete Alonso. I've made, again, y'all, you killed me. I would I do a 3-year, $90 million deal. You do Bellinger type deal. You get $30 million player options. You can have that right away. You can break your AAV, you're not getting your term. But my thing is okay, you signed Soto. And yes, like we said, we believe in Mark Vientos. Who's protecting him in the line? You're banking on a year 2 of Mark Vientos, who again could be a sophomore slump. And again, it's not even just the Alonso money. I guess I'm just talking about the money itself. I am not okay with sign Soto and the lineup's done. I agree with you. The pitching market needs to be the next priority. But I am not under the circumstance of, okay, Soto's the big bat, Mark Vientos, you need to not have a sophomore slump because you're the protection. I'm saying that money that could go to Alonso either needs to go to trading for a guy at a corner. Again, it could be either one, well, preferably third base, or let me rephrase that, just trading for a proven bat. Again, you probably get an upgrade, maybe, but my thing is, you're not stopping at just Soto offensively. And I'm not saying, like, well, bring back Jesse, because I've seen, like, oh, we signed Soto, we bring back Jesse Winky, and we're done. Like, you're worse. I mean, you have the better player, but if you're looking at this lineup, it's worse. So my thing is, if whatever money if let's say there is a negotiation, which maybe it's the Astros, maybe it's the Nationals, if they don't get Bregman, there's two, maybe the Cubs with Michael Busch, and they're trying to move a guy, which, hell, I'm not bringing that name up today, maybe for another video. My thing is, you're not stopping at a lot. It's at just Soto. And it's not just like, well, we can bring in Jock. As much as I love Jock, and we love Jock, there needs to be another proven all-star bat added. If it's Adames, if it is Alonso, then go to that damn trade market and lengthen this lineup. Because, yes, you put Soto, and the 1-2 is great. I don't want Brandon, as much as, I love Brandon Nimmo, I don't want to see Brandon Nimmo hitting cleanup. I'm sorry. I love him. But, like, okay, if you're trusting Mark Vientos to hit 3, Nimmo currently is your cleanup hitter.
Yeah.
Go up against the Dodgers and the Phillies lineup. Just, again, yes, we beat the Phillies. We beat them. They're going to go do something. If it's Bregman, if it's Arenado, if it's something, they're going to get improved somewhere, and they're going to get better. And obviously, we know their pitching staff. My point is, obviously, Soto over Alonso, not even a debate. But there better not be, from a Stearns perspective, say, well, we got Soto, now we're done. We can, go another Jose Siri, DH second base if Iglesias walks. That's not. It is Soto, and then taking that $23 or $25 million that you're willing to maybe pay Alonso needs to be either put in Adames, a Bregman, or go to that damn trade market and go get a proven to lengthen this lineup, because it can't just be like, well, we're done.
I don't worry about that, though. That's the thing. I don't worry about that, because this is actually a really good point. Like, this is probably part of their pitch to Soto. It's not just going to be, he could be here, get all the money, and be the highest paid player. There's also going to be a pitch as to where there's stability, he can build a deep team. And we know that there's going to be a possibility that he does that. When it comes to bringing in that extra guy, I guess you can say it's like bring in your Teoscar, right? You bring in the guy such as Shohei Ohtani. The Dodgers didn't stop there. They got Teoscar Hernandez, who is also a really good hitter, not an elite hitter, but a really good hitter, to deepen that lineup. We know that the bottom part of their lineup wasn't fantastic until Tommy Edman became Barry Bonds. But when it comes to, that overall Dodgers team, they have star power there, but it's a deep amount of star power of guys who could be elite hitters. I don't think that Pete Alonso is the only guy out there that could complement with Soto if you were to get another bat. Because, again, paying all that money to a first baseman just to make this lineup offensively good, paying all that money, possibly overpaying because of Scott Boras, then you're going to get into the point of like, okay, well, the 1 to 2 is nice. Let's make it a good 1, 2, 3. And then the rest of the lineup is just nothing. Like that's how I see it. It's like, what is 2 good hitters to 3 good hitters to 4? Like, I feel like you're going to get that deep enough lineup as to where they can, bring in some of these pieces. I think that they're going to put a little bit of a trust into the young guys. That too. Hopefully Alvarez can break out offensively and, give us a more productive, offensive catcher that we know that he's capable of doing, even though he is a catcher. Hopefully you get Mark Vientos to continue the way that he did. We'll see if he's hit that quota or not. Maybe he continues to get better. But there are some other pieces that they need to intertwine there. I'm not worried about Nimmo going forward. I know everybody saw Nimmo struggle the way that he did in the second half. I'm not worried about him. I know everybody is, and you want to replace him and trade him and get rid of him. First of all, that's not going to happen. I'm not worried about Brandon Nimmo going forward, personally, because I just don't think that he was healthy. He just did not look healthy. I think you're going to be fine. I think that there's other pieces that they are going to fill in here. Hopefully they do. And I think that, the Willie Adames talk about that could be something that they maybe pivot to after, if they get Soto or not. If they don't end up getting Soto, then there's definitely some holes that are going to end up that they're going to try to fill, and not try to make up for it with just the young guys and getting it from them. And this is the type of trust that I have in here. Truro coming in here saying Stearns will find a way to make a complete team. It's really not a worry. This is an Epler, which is is definitely the thought that I have in this, where I know that he can get creative, even with Juan Soto being, the Juan Soto guy that he is. I have faith in David Stearns of not making this team look top heavy, because this team last year, it seemed like Lindor and Vientos were like the big heavy lifters, but you still had contributions from a lot of pieces to fill into the margins that made it a lot more of a deeper team, even though there were some pieces that weren't hitting for a majority of that second half, and they were still able to overcome it. So I do trust that the Mets have a lot of a pivotal position, whether they get Soto or not. They are going to fill in, because once again, we've talked about it before, 14 free agents on the market, and then also tons of empty spots as well. It's not just the pivots or, the complementary pieces, which we will 100% make videos about. So for those of you who are angry about that and ready to throw at us with pitchforks for giving a lot of money to Juan Soto possibly, we will let you guys know. But right now, at this current moment, we're flowing at the rate that the Mets are flowing at. Right now, it is Juan Soto. So we'll see how they finish this thing up. I promise you they will. There's still tons of things that they need to address besides Juan Soto. And hopefully, with this big, deep free agency class out here that we've all been anticipating for 2-3 years now, I definitely believe that they will get the job done. Not to mention the trade market as well. Anything else you guys want to talk about going into this offseason? Because I think there is a lot that holds up with Juan Soto right now. It's different in a sense where, maybe, there are other pivots which there are. There are those pivots. But I do want to end it off here at the 2-hour mark, maybe a little bit shorter than we have been doing recently, but we're trying to cut it at the hour and a half to 2-hour mark here. Great episode, of course, as per usual. We will be going live if there is any crazy news. We did go live for Jose Siri coming into that. Of course, with some clips coming out from the podcast of that sort. Not to mention some videos as well on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. Andrew will have a solo video out talking about the non-tender players that the Mets could possibly bring in that were a non-tender from other teams. We also have another video as well coming out on Thursday. That will be in regard to the starting pitching department. So lots to come, of course. And I will shift it over to you guys and your final words. Andrew, I'll go to you first. We're all just waiting right now for that first domino to fall. But these reports definitely get us all excited and want to talk pretty much everything known to man. So how can you wrap it up for us?
Yeah, again, we got maybe about a week and a half left of this to go, because if offers are coming in this week, he maybe goes to dinner next week and just goes to a Chick-fil-A or something and make his decision hopefully by the end of next week, and then we could stop talking about this guy. Hopefully he's on the team, and then we could add him to the intro and the thumbnails of everything and, move on, and we add a generational talent, or we just get our dicks kicked in again, and we're used to that by now. So again, either way, it's either happiness or we move on.
We'll see. Frank?
Yeah, don't trade top 10 prospects for rentals if you're not going to re-sign them in the offseason. So be smart with your money, make smart decisions, and don't do dumb stuff.
Yeah. Listen, I think, I'm easy asking here of a certain topic. We're going to end it off here, but, asking about the Jonathan India trade, if we can do something like that. Can't think of a second baseman I want to move. So let's move on to all of this craziness going into the offseason. We have the winter meetings coming up in about a week or so, a little bit less than 2 weeks. So we'll definitely be doing as much coverage as we can for when these signings roll in. Usually that's the most populated of live streams that we do as aside from the show. So we'll see, where that takes us. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. For those of you listening on playback, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications to not know when we go live. If you're a little sad that we're only doing this show once a week, we do have other content that goes out on regularly Tuesday and on Thursday, 2 videos a week. We also have some other stuff planned in the works. Follow us on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually. We will see you guys next time. And of course, let's go Mets. And peace out. We'll see you guys for 106 next week.